You are listening to the Novel Writing Podcast, episode 175. I'm your host, Colleen Mitchell. Grab a cup, cozy up, and let's get to writing. Today we're on the next in our Literary Sins series, all about those things authors do, or don't do, that drive readers nuts, and how to avoid them, or not. This literary sin is about improper research and the impacts it has on readers if that improper research makes it into the published book. There's a balance between being really detailed about all the things you research and knowing enough about the subject that experts won't call you out for getting something blatantly wrong. I'll admit that my biggest pet peeve when reading novels, or even when watching films and TV shows, is when writers get firearms wrong. Whether it's in the description, the handling, the safety, the use, or anything else, poorly written firearms alienates readers who are familiar with them, and that's important, especially if you're writing in a genre where a lot of people who shoot might be reading. Those genres would include thrillers, action-adventure, sci-fi, and murder mysteries, just as an example. In the 60-Day Novel Writing Challenge, Haley talks about how Stephanie Meyer, the author of the Twilight books, called a male elk a buck instead of a bull during an elk hunting scene, and how that has irritated her for years. While it's a relatively minor detail, it stands out to the people who are familiar with those things, and that's a consequence of improper research, and also the editors not catching the error. On the other end of the spectrum is overwhelming readers with minute details that show you've done your research, which is not what readers want either. Treat details like these as the sprinkles on top of the cupcake, not the cupcake itself. So how do you properly research all the little things you want to address in your story? It depends on what all those things are, but in general, you should research anything that an expert in that thing would recognize if you got it wrong. For example, weapons, including firearms, swords, bows, daggers, or knives, and other niche weapons if you're writing about something more obscure. Fighting styles, especially if you're describing a specific martial art that you don't have personal experience in. And for this, I highly recommend checking out Carla Hoch's Fight Right books on writing fight scenes, or attending one of her in-person classes if you get the chance. Occupations, and that will even apply to characters still in school or in a fantasy sci-fi society. Occupation has to do with where the character fits in the story, and will sometimes even define aspects of their personality. Knowing those occupations well is key to writing them like an expert, even if you don't have firsthand knowledge or include all of the bits that you found while researching. And then you want to pay attention to any small details specific to your genre that would stick out if they were wrong or improperly described. Properly researching is going to start with internet searches, but the most surefire way to find out more about a subject you're researching is actually talking to an expert in that field. Beth, one of our murder mystery authors who writes books set in Britain, regularly talks to a constabulary in England to get the details right. When I was finalizing the first chapter of Mark of Stars, my first book, I gave it to a power plant safety professional. He was a coworker, and he was able to confirm that I got all of the safety details right. We've had other people who reach out to professors or academics who can help direct research efforts and avoid errors that would reveal ignorance. And if you're worried about those people telling you no, just know that most people have a heart to help with this kind of thing. Another avenue that I've used more recently for research purposes is ChatGPT. With the right prompts and a back and forth conversation, I can use it for basic research that I can then go and validate by other methods. Sometimes it's hard to find the initial answers on a basic internet search, and AI can do the heavy lifting for you as long as we do some verification just to check. It also kind of helps us stay out of a rabbit hole if you get an answer up front. AI does frequently make mistakes, and we shouldn't be afraid of questioning things when it spews answers that sound a little sus. Honestly, improper research is a literary sin that we shouldn't even have issues with because of how easy it is nowadays to research things. And if there are things you can't actually research for whatever reason, then the rule of thumb is to be about 80% correct, and then don't worry about the other 20% that isn't, because we're authors and we get artistic license to make stuff up if it fits in the story. Something Carla Hoch said in our episode on writing fight scenes, which if you missed it was episode 171, is that readers don't want authentic. They want realistic. We don't want to read about medieval knights suffering from dysentery or syphilis, and we don't want to read about characters going to the bathroom or getting 3 square meals a day. We want to read about the plot and the character relationships and feel the emotions around those things. And that's realism, not authenticity. Keep that in mind when you're sprinkling those little details on your cupcake, and when in doubt, have a critter read it. That's it for today's episode. Thanks for joining me, and remember, the first draft is supposed to be garbage. Thanks for listening to the Novel Writing Podcast. If you're ready to stop struggling and start finishing your novel, check out the 60-Day Novel Writing Challenge. It's a step-by-step program designed for solo writers to complete their first draft with clarity and focus. Visit the link in the description to learn more.